Hello, and welcome to the Flying Cat Marketing Interview Series. Today, I'm so excited to have Joy Ritter and Wes Melton, who are the co-founders of Pulse Nokori, a social media channel for property managers and everybody in the vacation rental space. We've been online friends for some time now, and I'm really excited to have you both here on the podcast today. How are you?
Good,
Awesome.
Maybe. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, so I'm really curious. Tell me about how you started Pulse Nokori and what motivated you, Nokori, what motivated you to start a social media channel?
Yeah, so briefly, my background in 2013, I founded a property management company in the Smoky Mountains market that I was able to exit in the fall of 16. And my business partner and I at the time, we both had a past in like tech and marketing. And so we actually went into kind of the niche OTA side of the industry, staying in vacation rentals. And um, an interesting thing happened where February, right before COVID kind of took over the US, I just exited that company and I was in some masterminds with some PMs in the US. And we were getting on like weekly phone calls as the pandemic started sweeping the States. And like it was just the plague, right, for business, and especially in travel, because we kind of got hit first. And one of the things that came out of that, though, was this really vibrant community of property managers who were getting on calls every single week saying, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what's working. This is where we're trying to cut budget to keep staff. This is how we're getting approved for the paycheck protection loans. Here's the banks that are easy to work with. Here's the banks that don't. And all of those companies ultimately survived. And I was so inspired by it that, like, combined with my experience that having been in the industry for a while and then seeing this group come together, I think for us, as we were talking through it, Joy and I, like, we just realized like there is significant power in connecting, even in a professional environment, because so many companies in our space are so like regionally specific that they're not competitors in the truest sense. And so I think like by actually kind of closing those gaps, those companies actually helped each other survive. And so I think a big impetus for Pulse was we wanted to try to help take that small experiment and turn it into industry-wide community experiment that hopefully in the long term will pay off in the same way.
Yeah, I think too, I briefly my background, I come from LiveRes, so the property management software side of the world. And that was something that at LiveRes they always prided themselves on, was this sense of community amongst property managers. And I think it was my favorite part of being at LiveRes was just getting to know the kind of spirit and the salt of the earth people that are property managers. And so being able to amplify that and kind of make it on this larger scale outside of just the LiveRes community, that was really exciting for me to be a part of.
So, but why not just like a Facebook group for it? It's a big step to create a whole channel.
Yeah, so I think the problem is Facebook is all things to all people, and it's huge, right? For us, we feel like something that was very small on purpose was going to have a much deeper impact. If I'm a property manager with a question that I need help with, if I post that question, there's a high certainty that the majority of the community will see it and have an opportunity
Yeah.
to respond and learn from it. Whereas with both Facebook and LinkedIn, the challenge is I may share something, and yes, I may even share it to a group that I'm in, but because of how the recommendation algorithms work, only a small percentage of people are even going to see it.
Yeah.
So that's a probably, yeah, we're small on purpose. It was thoughtful.
No,
Yeah, and I
I
think
love it. I'm sorry. Were you
yeah,
gonna
no, go
say?
ahead. Well, I was gonna say, Wes and I both come from tech backgrounds, so like we saw the problems in the Facebook groups where because there's tons of Facebook groups for property managers, and I think that there's a lot of knowledge contained in these groups, but it's hard to search for. The same question gets asked over and over. You get some like weird people coming in and like asking weird stuff, like are like property manager adjacent, and then LinkedIn has just become very like salesy, and I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn. It's just a lot of like noise and ads and people using weird messaging hacks. So like, it didn't seem like either of those platforms really served our mission. So we kind of decided to start from scratch.
So did anything that you learned from your tech background, were you able to bring that into this space, into starting Pulse Nokori?
Joy, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, I think if there's one thing I've learned about property managers in the last 5, 6 years that I've been in the industry is that they love technology, but they're not tech first business people most of the time. And so oftentimes in this space, because we're such a complex industry with a lot of moving parts, the technology is really complex. And so we wanted to create something that was very simple that anyone of any technological skill level could dig in and benefit from the community and participate in the community, and make it something that's really beautiful and pleasant to use. I think that that's really important to us. And Wes, maybe you can jump in here because I know that that's kind of something that you're really passionate about, the design element.
Yeah, I think, for me, Mavid, everything we've worked on over the last year has really just kind of felt like a homecoming for me. Like throughout my career, I've just been so blessed to get to work on so many different random things that like it feels like a lot of them are starting to coalesce into what we're doing now. My wife frequently tells me, she's like, it's so random that you guys are working on that, like because you worked on XYZ thing 5 years ago and you had no idea why you even had to do that, and so, yeah, I think having been in the travel industry for a while, having been a tech guy at heart since I was a kid, I'm just having fun every day. Like this has just been a really great time in my career, and I'm really happy that Joy and I get to do it together.
That's a beautiful story, inspiring, really. So what about marketing? So how are you getting more people? I know that when I joined, I got referred by somebody, and then I've also referred somebody else. Is that your main source of users now, or what are you doing to bring in more property managers?
That's a great question. So this isn't meant to step on any toes of anyone that feels different. And there's many brilliant minds in the world that will disagree with me on this. I actually just got off the phone with someone that I respect a ton that will disagree with what I'm about to say. But we've decided at this stage that we want to grow the brand exclusively through referrals or direct communication.
Okay.
There are plenty of proven marketing strategies that work that go beyond that. And I think maybe at some point in our growth, those things will start to make sense. But right now, we feel like the way to really grow a brand that achieves its mission is by actually forming either direct relationships with people that you're trying to actually provide value to, and they're telling you in real time, yes, this provides value, no, this doesn't. Or, kind of the heart of the NPS score. Like, do you love this product enough that you would tell a friend about it? And for us right now, it feels like the right measure of success is, are people inviting other people? And if they're not, I feel like rather than just kind of defaulting to maybe some more popular strategies that I think probably would work to get people in the door, I feel like we're going to ask better questions of ourselves and of the product at this stage. Like, what do we need to change so that more people are telling other people about it? I think it's going to force us to flex marketing muscles and brand exercises that I just think if we started hammering, a list of 50,000 property manager contacts that you could go by, like we could get people to sign up, sure. But how long are they going to stay? Are they going to be engaged? Are they there for the right reasons? Do they even understand what our ideal value proposition is in terms of helping them connect with resources and material and information and other people, other companies, so that's a very long-winded answer to your question. But I think at the end of the day, the way we're thinking about marketing at this stage of our company is very human oriented, real relationships, real feedback in real time.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we both love about this industry, is that most people in this space are in it because they come from this place of loving to connect with other humans, be it their guests, if they're a property manager, or the software providers who are working with property managers who are just like incredible people to work with. That's kind of the foundation of the hospitality industry. And so that's something that Wes and I are both really passionate about. And I love that we kind of know who each of the users on Pulse are right now, and like some semblance of a way. Like we're getting to know you and starting to like dig into what you're working on. Property managers are sharing pictures of their, markets and what they're doing there. It's just been, hi, buddy. It's just been really fun to like to do things that don't scale, to try to have a meaningful connection with each of your users. I think that's been really powerful for us.
It's so important at the start to do things that don't scale. Of course, at some point you have to start thinking about scalability, but building these relationships and having, it's kind of like user-led growth, but also product-led growth. That's something that you were mentioning to me before, Joy, where you said, everybody's saying you have to do this for marketing. You have to be on Instagram, you have to be on Facebook, but do you really have to do all of the things that people, do you have to follow all these best practices, or is that just the things that everybody's doing because they can't spend the time getting to know all of the users individually? How many users do you have now?
So we're in the low thousands, and we've kind of intentionally stopped actively trying to get people to join. Referrals are still happening almost every day, which is great. But we've really tried to take a pause because we kind of know where we're weak right now. And before we try to turn on the gas again, we want to try to fill some of the holes. And as any startup will attest, like sometimes filling holes takes time, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, it's been really awesome, actually, just the response that we've seen from the community, and the feedback we've gotten is, that they feel like it is filling a real need, which for us is the best feedback you could hope for, that you're actually delivering value to people that you hope to actually provide value to. So it's been really awesome. We've learned a lot, definitely a lot of potholes on the road, and some mistakes too. But that's part of the journey, is you just learn as you go.
I think that one of the most valuable things that a brand can build these days is a community. So, I'm in content, and I also think content is very important, but it's so much more powerful if you have a community to share it with. It makes the whole difference. But like you said, building a community is hard. It's not scalable. What are your tricks? What have you learned about building a community that maybe you didn't know a year ago?
Joy, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I do. I think understanding that you don't have to be everything for everybody, and kind of knowing who you are first and what you want the platform to be, and then finding people who share the same heart for that, so that you kind of form this collective community of people who are invested. Like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of like people who talk about, how many followers you have or how many users you have or whatever. And I think at some point that just becomes a vanity metric, because what does that really even mean? Like, do you have X number of users who log in once a month and don't really, actively participate? Or do you have a smaller amount of users who are really engaged? So I think being comfortable with a slower community growth or user growth, kind of like Wes was alluding to, and knowing that it's about the quality of the user and about their engagement level, and not getting caught up in like, okay, how many users did we get today? But who were those people that did join?
Yeah.
How can we make sure that they have what they need and that they're really engaged? So that was a bit of a mental shift, I think.
Well, it's a focus on brand. Sorry, go ahead, Wes.
No, I was going to say, I think that, like with what you were saying, Joy, what was kind of surprising to us early on was that the right decision, even at this stage of being new, a few times has actually been to ask people to not participate anymore, because like their presence was immediately just so out of congruence with the ethos that we're trying to create in the community. Like I know maybe a more traditional VC-backed company would say, "Oh no, you never reduce numbers; you always add to them." And I think for us, we've been very comfortable with the opposite. In fact, that we're very committed to what we want the community to be and the value we want it to provide to everyone there. And it's actually been kind of an interesting learning going through that process of like defending it, even at this early stage when some people would call it suicide to reduce your numbers. But I think it will pay dividends in the long term by trying to protect what Joy was saying, the actual community atmosphere we're trying to create.
But even a few thousand users, that's a lot of users to moderate and to see what they're doing. How do you guys manage all of that while also focusing on higher level strategic moves in the business?
Yeah, so I think building a platform like this is a lot different than it was even 10 or 15 years ago when I think forum software was like the way to go when you're trying to build a community. And then I think as big as Facebook is, I think the internet has largely forgotten that Reddit actually kind of made the feed popular first with a broad array of different content types. And so for us, I think that having tech backgrounds and me having been an engineer for most of my career, it just takes a lot of algorithms, takes a lot of study. Sometimes it takes having no algorithms and like trusting the community to actually police the content. And they do, which is great. But it's definitely a very kind of a thin line to walk sometimes. And like, is this an algorithmic problem or is this just a human problem? And we need to make it easier for people that are in the community to actually police bad actors, and then also send signals that this content maybe is out of sync with what they're really there to see. And so it's lots of human judgment at this point, I think, on our side too, regardless of where the signal came from, to ultimately make a decision.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the beauty of being at this stage is like Wes and I will always say, like, if we're not engaged in the community, how can we expect others to be engaged in the community, right? So Wes and I are constantly engaging in the community. And so I bet there's no post that goes by that not Wes or I has laid eyeballs on, just because we're in there and having conversations. And so at this stage, it's easy for us to kind of start to figure out, okay, where are the areas where people tend to kind of like push the limits? Who are the people that were like, oh, not a great fit? And then we can take those learnings and then turn them into something that's a little bit more algorithmic. Wes can work his engineering magic to make that something that can really scale beyond just the two of us.
But, even to that point though, Joy, like I think what's been interesting is, our goal is to be as inclusive as possible, right? Like we want this to be a place where literally anyone in the industry can show up and genuinely feel like they've been helped in some meaningful way professionally. And we have early on, we had some vendors that showed up and man, they were just so heavy handed from day one with like the sales stuff. Like to their credit, like I reached out to them via email and like shared an article with them that we wrote, kind of like what the community's for, and said, hey, we'd love for you to be here, but we really want you guys to really contribute like helpful knowledge too, not just like come buy my stuff. And to their credit, 99% of them have been like, hey, thanks so much for reaching out to me. This has been so helpful. And then like the next time that they shared something, man, it was way less salesy. Even if it was back to their site, like it was still to an article that actually had helpful information in it. It was industry stats. It was like, or just tutorials even, like, here's how to do this thing. And so like, that's been really rewarding for us too, to see that like, even the, the more sales oriented side of the industry, I think have been really very interested in actually trying to take a different approach than what they've tried to do on LinkedIn historically. And I hope that long term it really contributes to the value proposition for property managers and hosts that are there too.
It's interesting that you said you shared that piece. That's so valuable because honestly, as a member of an online community, especially a new one, you don't really know what the rules are. You don't really know what the owners of the community are hoping that it's going to be. Or what the best practices are. And I'm also part of this Facebook group called SaaS Growth Hacks. And recently the owner of the group, also being frustrated with the kind of content that people were sharing, wrote an article saying, this is how you should interact in a Facebook group, like how to be friends with the owner of the group. And even though I'm never trying to spam people, I read that and I was like, this is enlightening. Okay, I didn't realize that you should go and find out what the owner's intentions are with the group. You come into a community and you're like, oh, I'm in this community now, I can do whatever. But that's not true. So it's great that you're finding ways to educate the members of the community. Are you managing to get any other kind of ambassadors to spread that message around?
100%. That's what I was just about to say. Like, I think Joy and I's dream long term is that we don't manage anything. Like that the community is self-organized, self-managing. And like we definitely have some people in the community that we're already eyeballing for that when we get ready for it. Sneak peek, maybe you're on that list. Like I think that the community will ultimately thrive when it's organized and led by the community to provide the value that they all collectively want out of it. And so that's definitely our long-term vision as we grow, is to actually back out of management and actually just hand it over to the people that are there.
That was going to be my next question, is what's on the horizon? What's coming?
Well, we've got some exciting stuff in the works for Pulse. I don't think we can talk about it yet. But we're very excited about it. However, as a company with Nokori, we actually just soft launched our second product called Audiences, which we're rolling out as the industry's first native advertising platform. I'm sure as you and any other marketer in the world has been watching the iOS and Google Ads drama go down. I think we've realized that meaningful targeting and segmentation may drastically just evaporate over the next 12 months. And I think that as we watch the OTAs invest in billions of dollars at a time for top of market awareness, we feel like there's a very significant opportunity that's being presented to actually create an advertising platform that allows vendors and PMs in the space to target in ways that are very meaningfully segmented, very specifically segmented, to actually make their ad dollars work again. We actually had a partner that told us last month, I think it was Joy, they're a solutions provider in the space, and they've been a heavy Facebook ad spender. And they said over the last kind of 12 to 18 months, they've just steadily watched their ROI just go down as targeting has been remediated. And so we're trying as hard as we can to actually give more of that targeting and segmentation power back to the people in the industry in ways that I don't think any of the big platforms are ever going to turn about face on.
That's very exciting. And I agree that it's about time to have a different way to reach people. I'm also quite tired of Google and Facebook. Well, yep. I can't say that about Google. I do like them organically.
As long as the traffic's free.
As long as the traffic's free, then it's okay. Guys, this has been so much fun talking to you today.
Maybe it's been really fun for us. And I wanted to tell you too, I was really inspired by a podcast that you published last year. You mentioned that you help companies do content marketing. And one of the things you said in your podcast was that, it's becoming an expectation in modern times for companies to actually be content producers.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a helpful thing to point out, that like the modern consumer does expect like not just a product, they actually expect like an experience, and specifically like oftentimes an educational experience that's a part of the product. And so kudos to you. I think that was such a helpful thing to highlight at a really kind of critical part of our journey. So yeah, we've learned a lot from you too. It's been great.
Oh, appreciate that. I have enjoyed being on Pulse so much. It's such a nice community and such a nice escape from whatever the other major platforms have become from their
drive. I don't use Facebook anymore. hey, buddy.
Yeah, my cat's doing parkour.
That's amazing.
He's like, let's wrap this up, Mom. Let's go.
All right, guys. So I normally end each podcast episode asking where is the best place to find you, but I think we all know where you're going to say.
Yeah, if you want to find us, get on the App Store, search for Nokori Pulse, and you'll find us there.
Yeah, love it. All right. Thank you so much. And whoever's watching or listening, if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share with a friend or colleague. Go check out Pulse Nokori if you're in the vacation rental, short-term rental space. And
follow Bava there.
Yes.
Follow Bava there.
She's got good
thank you so much, guys. And see you next time.